Good day from the Russian Mission Control Center in the town of Korolyov on the outskirts of Moscow, where at this hour, 2 American astronauts and a Russian cosmonaut are closing in for a docking to the International Space Station to double the size of the space station's crew as part of Expedition 55. Good afternoon and welcome to our coverage of the arrival on the International Space Station a short time from now of Russian cosmonaut Oleg Artemyev and NASA astronauts Drew Feustel and Ricky Arnold 2 days after their launch from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan atop their Soyuz rocket. At this hour, the Soyuz MS-08 is about 2 kilometers away from the International Space Station, closing at a rate of about 8.5 meters per second, right on target, having conducted a successful test of the Corps' automated rendezvous system a short time ago, and with the team in Houston at Mission Control at the Johnson Space Center having conducted a poll, a go, no-go poll, and every position in Houston is go for docking, which is coming up about 39 minutes from now. The Soyuz MS-08 has been in great shape over the past 48 hours. All of the rendezvous burns and all of the systems checks have been conducted in a nominal fashion, no issues reported, and the crew on this 2-day rendezvous from the launch pad of the Baikonur Cosmodrome, every ground station pass over Russian ground stations over the past 2 days has reported that they feel great and that everything is in good shape on board the vehicle. The 3 crew members arriving at the International Space Station, Oleg Artemyev, Ricky Arnold, and Drew Feustal. They are an experienced crew, 3 veteran space travelers. They are arriving at the space station following their launch 2 days ago from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan. Oleg Artemyev is the Soyuz commander, operating under the call sign of Hawaii. He is in the center seat of the descent module, the center section of the 3-section Soyuz spacecraft, flanked on his left by Drew Feustal of NASA, who is board engineer number 1, and Ricky Arnold in the right seat, who is board engineer number 2. Aboard the International Space Station, the 3 residents who have been a 3-person crew for the past 3 weeks, since the departure of 3 other crew members, are eagerly anticipating the arrival of the new residents of the station. The Expedition 55 commander, Anton Shkaplerov, along with Scott Tingle of NASA and Norishige Kanai of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency. They have been on board the station since December, and a short time from now, they will be joined by their 3 new colleagues to complete the expansion of the crew back to its normal complement of 6 people. As we mentioned, the journey for Artemyev, Feustel, and Arnold began on Wednesday from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, with their liftoff from Site 1, Gagarin's launch pad, occurring at 11:44 p.m. Baikonur time. The engines flashed to life. The Soyuz took flight on an 8-minute, 45-second ride to deposit the Soyuz MS-08 into its preliminary orbit, where it quickly deployed its navigational antennas and its solar arrays to begin this 2-day trek to the International Space Station that will culminate a short time from now with a link-up of the Soyuz vehicle to the Poisk module on the space-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station. As we mentioned, a short time from now, all of the pre-docking preparations have been going extremely well. You're looking at a view from a balcony camera overlooking the large International Space Station Flight Control Room here in Korolyov at the Russian Mission Control Center. The crew is slowly but steadily approaching on an automated approach to the International Space Station, now closing at a rate of about 8 meters per second. The major milestones that are upcoming will be highlighted about 13 minutes from now, when the Soyuz moves into close proximity of the International Space Station. As you see the station from the external television camera and the engineering cross-haired overlay with all of the data that is being seen by the Russian flight controllers here in Korolyov, now just 3.8 kilometers away from a docking closing at about 8 meters per second at the time of contact and capture, which is scheduled at 2:41 p.m. Central Time, 10:41 p.m. here in Korolyov. The Soyuz will be closing at a very, very slow rate of about 1/10 of a meter per second for contact and capture, the retraction of the docking probe, and the hooks closing on both sides of the docking interface to form a hard mate. The fly around of the International Space Station is planned about 12 minutes from now, as the Soyuz will conduct a 122-degree fly around of the station to precisely align itself at a range of about 400 meters or 1,300 feet, looking directly into the barrel of the docking port on the Poisk module on the space-facing side of the International Space Station. At Mission Control in Houston, the Orbit 2 team of flight controllers is on duty at this hour, led by Flight Director Vincent LaCourte. He and his team of flight controllers, as I mentioned just a short time ago, conducted a go, no-go poll of all of their flight control positions and concluded that everything was in good shape from the space station side of the house to accept the arrival of the Soyuz and its 3 occupants. LaCourte is on the right side of your screen talking to Pooja Jaswani, who's the spacecraft communicator, joined on console today by Kjell Lindgren, Soyuz systems expert, who is providing his insight when required, and talking directly to the space station crew of Shkaplerov, Tingle and Kanai when required. Once the docking is completed and a hard mate is established between the Soyuz and the International Space Station at the Poisk module docking port, the crews on either side of the docking interface will conduct about 90 minutes worth of leak checks and pressure checks to ensure that they have an airtight seal at that docking interface before the approval is given for them to open hatches. That is scheduled at approximately 4:45 p.m. Central Time, which would be 12:45 a.m. here in Moscow on Saturday morning. At that point, the 6 crew members will have a chance to greet one another, conduct a short welcoming ceremony in which they'll accept congratulatory calls from VIPs and family members who are gathered here on the balcony at the Russian Mission Control Center before they get down to business, which will include the traditional safety briefing and a tour of the station by Station Commander Anton Shkaplerov, who will show them escape routes and basically run through all of the emergency evacuation procedures that are standard staple practice for any arriving space station crew. The crew on the International Space Station, once the new residents arrive, will have an off-duty day on Saturday, but there's no time to lose as they get back into a normal workday actually on Sunday that will be highlighted by spacewalk tool preparations and spacewalk procedure reviews that will be conducted for Drew Feustal and Ricky Arnold, who just 6 days from now, next Thursday, will be conducting a 6.5-hour spacewalk outside of the Quest airlock of the International Space Station to install wireless antennas to accommodate payload operations coming up in the near future, as well as replacing a camera port assembly out on the P1 truss, or the Port 1 truss of the International Space Station. The crew, well trained, with Feustel having had 6 spacewalks to his credit and Ricky Arnold with 2, will get right down to business without hardly an opportunity to breathe before they begin a fairly intense several days of spacewalking activities that will precede them going out of the hatch of the Quest airlock next Thursday. We'll talk more about that later on. There is a view from the International Space Station's truss cameras of the Soyuz vehicle as the Soyuz is flying at an altitude of some 253 miles above the Earth in tandem with the International Space Station, continuing to close its distance and its rate of closure to the complex, with docking again scheduled at 2:41 p.m. Central Time, 10:41 p.m. here in Korolyov. Again, a good view of the thruster firings on the Soyuz MS-08 spacecraft with the call sign of Hawaii as chosen collectively by the crew members. Oleg Artemyev in the center seat is the Soyuz commander, flanked on his left by Drew Feustel and on his right by Ricky Arnold, as they are now just 29 minutes away from contact and capture, if not earlier, depending on the progress of the Soyuz and the precise alignment of the Soyuz forward docking probe to the Poisk module once the fly-around of the International Space Station is complete.
Just work per your discretion, whatever works best. You can deactivate AGC mode. Okay, we're going to try that.
You're hearing Russian flight controllers talking to Artemyev on board the Soyuz vehicle. The Soyuz and the International Space Station flying in an orbit inclined 51.6 degrees to either side of the equator, moving from southwest to northeast, flying directly over Montevideo, Uruguay.
21 kilometers is the range, closing in 3.6. And okay, I see that the value of 1 again. And DPO are active, approach and additive thrusters. The station is moving from left to right. Copy. And we are standing by for break and burn or retrograde burn on approach and attitude thrusters. DPO closing in 3.4. 4 kilometers is the range. Predictions are being updated.
The Soyuz, again, through automated command from its computers, is conducting a series of what are known as impulse burns. These are small mid-course corrections of a few seconds in duration that is enabling the Soyuz to fine-tune its path to the International Space Station. Now 800 meters separating the Soyuz and the station, closing at a rate of just under 2.5 meters per second.
Okay, break and burn DPO are active now. DPO in operation.
Торможение.
Breaking. Okay, 800 meters.
Принимаю тебя, Олег.
Oleg, I copy you, and I read you loud and clear.
Изображение принимаете, да?
Are you seeing the image? The predictions are being updated. Yes, the image is of very good quality right now. Okay, activate AGC mode once again. I think it will be better for both, for you and for us as well. AGC mode worked for us, but again, I'd like to stress that you should like the image that works best for you. Copy. 670 is the range. The angular size is
less than 700 meters now separating the Soyuz, as you can see in this view from cameras on the International Space Station, flying over Sao Paulo, Brazil, at an altitude of 253 statute miles. Everything continuing to go by the book as we approach the point of the start of the fly-around that will be initiated at a distance of about 400 meters, a fly-around of 122 degrees for the Soyuz to precisely align itself with the Poisk module on the space-facing side of the International Space Station's Russian segment.
The rate is 1.5. Prediction is being updated. Excellent. Copy.
Расстояние 550 метров.
550 meters, closing in at 1.4. Half a square is the same size. 490 is the course value. The values match.
Russian flight controllers reporting to Anton Shkaplerov aboard the station, as well as Oleg Artemyev aboard the Soyuz, that the MS-08 is right on track. The Corps' automated rendezvous system operating as advertised. You can see in this split screen view, the view on the upper left-hand corner from the Soyuz external television camera, and on the right, the view from a truss camera on the International Space Station.
We're switching to page 77 of the ODS. Affirmative. The range is 415, 1.1 is the rate. The predictions are being updated. Copy and confirm. We're seeing the fly around. And
flight controllers now reporting that the fly around by the Soyuz MS-08 has begun. Again, a 122-degree angle for this fly around that will result in the forward end of the Soyuz MS-08 vehicle in direct alignment with the docking port of the Poisk module on the space-facing side of the Russian segment of the International Space Station. This fly-around should take under 10 minutes to complete, at which point, at about 2:28 p.m. Central Time, the Soyuz will put on the brakes for the start of a brief period of station keeping at a range of some 600 feet from its final destination at the Poisk module docking port.
340 is the range. Rate is 0.86 meters. All the sizes match. Angular sizes match. 320 meters is the range. I think, okay, I copy. We're seeing the image and we confirm rate and range values.
Flying in symmetry, the Soyuz and the International Space Station now flying directly over Rio de Janeiro, moving from southwest to northeast. Everything going by the book, no issues reported. All of the Soyuz systems in good shape. Oleg Artemyev in the center seat of the Soyuz spacecraft, flanked on his left by Drew Feustel, on his right, Ricky Arnold.
Yes, we are. Well, you should have closed window covers. At 280 meters is the range, 0.59 is the rate, and the range and rate match. Predictions are being updated. Copy.
Steady as she goes, the Soyuz spacecraft continuing its fly around of the International Space Station to align itself with the Poisk module. Everything in good shape. Flight controllers here in Korea very happy with the data that they're seeing on their displays.
It is approximately 1 square in size, and course values match. Sizes are also the same or match.
Сейчас ровно одна клетка по служебному модулю.
SM is exactly 1 square, and it ranges 238 and rate 0.37. Everything matches. DPO are on.
The Soyuz MS-08 not quite halfway through its fly around. Again, when it reaches a point of about 193 meters or 633 feet away from the station, the Soyuz will automatically put on the brakes based on its computer commands and sit quiescently for a few minutes for a period of station keeping to allow flight controllers here in Korolyov to assess its systems one final time before the automated command is given to proceed on for final approach, contact, and capture.
Copy, and we're receiving the image. Also, we confirm all parameters.
.215 meters separating Soyuz and the station, closing at a rate of just over 1/10 of a meter per second.
The range is approximately 210 meters, and the rate is almost zero. Predictions are being updated, and you only have 80 degrees of left fly around. Okay, yes, I confirm. Copy. Sunset will start in 2 minutes and 2:27, and approach will happen at Eclipse Pass. Okay, so we will need to activate headlights, correct? Yes, so should I activate them?
The Soyuz MS-08 and the International Space Station is approaching an orbital sunset as it nears the west coast of Africa, moving from southwest to northeast. 200 meters now separating the Soyuz and 3 new residents of the station from their final destination, the Poisk module.
Headlights are on. Понял. Floodlights are on. Range is approximately 200 meters. Rate is almost equal to zero. Predictions are being updated.
Принято.
Copy.
The Soyuz, now more than 3/4 of the way complete with its fly around, will be standing by momentarily for the nulling of the rates and the approach of the Soyuz to the International Space Station and the start of just a brief period of station keeping.
200 метров сохраняем.
200 meters is the range. Rate is at almost zero. Predictions are being updated.
Работа ДПО идет постоянно.
DPO are operating continuously. DPO approach and attitude thrusters are operating.
Так, приближаемся потихоньку.
Okay, you have almost completed flight around. You are go to activate the SCAT periscope illumination unit, and a flight engineer should be prepared for the command final approach on approach display.
All right, so what's that?
Можешь свернуть, если тебе необходимо.
You can minimize them if that's necessary.
Вы принимаете, да? Все хорошо?
Are you still receiving the telemetry? Yes, we do receive the image.
И сразу будем выдавать команду на причаливание.
And we are waiting for these steps to be completed, and after that we'll send the rendezvous command immediately after that. Copy. So we'll be waiting for the station keeping.
Just 200 meters now separating Soyuz from the International Space Station, and as you can see from this external television camera on the Soyuz spacecraft, a roll maneuver is underway to properly angle the solar arrays on the Soyuz for final approach and docking.
Разворачиваемся по крену.
The roll maneuver is underway. We can see that. Affirmative.
Есть К-15. Есть К-15.
K-15 is confirmed.
Принято.
Copy all. That's great.
The approach rate has been nulled. Station keeping underway. Flight controllers here in Korolyov assessing the Soyuz systems.
Station keeping is confirmed.
We are expecting the initiation of final approach momentarily.
Yes. Okay, please send the rendezvous command.
Выдали причал.
It has been sent.
Наблюдаем причаливание.
We can see the rendezvous.
And flight controllers now confirming that the Soyuz has initiated its final approach for a docking to the Poisk module of the International Space Station. A good view of the spacecraft. In the descent module, the Soyuz commander Oleg Artemyev, flanked by NASA astronauts Drew Feustel and Ricky Arnold, moments away from their arrival at the International Outpost.
Сейчас чуть поближе подойдем, фара уже будет подсвечивать нам.
So when we get closer, the floodlights will be helping us there. So, but we can see everything very clearly in the periscope. That's great.
Стыковочный узел выше на одну клетку.
The docking port is higher, 1 square higher in the periscope.
Немного по крену.
Slightly in the roll direction. So I see some divergence in roll values.
Понял, это нормально.
That is nominal, Oleg.
По служебному модулю примерно угловые размеры 2 клетки.
The size of the SM is approximately 2 squares, and we are at 120 meters, and the rate is 0.6, and the predictions are being corrected right now. Copy.
The Core's automated rendezvous system right on the money in the lower left-hand corner from this view of the Soyuz external television camera. You're looking almost right down the barrel of the Poisk module. Now just 100 meters separating the two vehicles, Soyuz closing at a rate of 0.5 of a meter per second.
ССП. Готов. Пожалуйста.
You see the solar arrays. I hope so. 80 meters away.
Около 3 леток по служебному модулю.
The SM.
The visiting vehicle officer working with the ballistics folks, both here in Korolyov and at Mission Control in Houston, reports that the Soyuz is dead on, straight as an arrow, heading for a docking just minutes from now. Great view of the Soyuz MS-08, which 2 days ago sat on the launch pad of the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan, now just a short distance away from completing its journey, which has been fully automated to this point.
1 square in size. Copy. 70 meters. Okay, so the range here. The target is almost at the center of the periscope, slightly higher than the center. Copy.
Just 58 meters now separating the two vehicles, Soyuz in the International Space Station flying over northwest Algeria, soon to cross the northern coast of Africa and over the Mediterranean.
The docking port is approximately 1.5 squares in size. It should be 45-50 meters, and it matches that. The predictions are being updated. Copy. So we'll wait for the range of 47 meters, and we should be controlling the docking and internal transfer system. Yes, so 48, and according to the predictions, is 49. So we are just standing by. Docking and internal transfer system command has been sent. The hooks are open, and everything is confirmed. So all SSVP docking internal transfer system commands have gone through. Copy.
The Soyuz MS-08 has now powered up its docking mechanism. Everything on both ends, both on the station end and the Soyuz end, operating normally. 40 meters separating Soyuz from its contact and capture point at the Poisk module.
The docking port is 2 squares in size. The range is approximately 33 meters. 36. Copy. The docking port is clearly visible. It is being illuminated by the floodlights, but it's still a little bit dark. Copy. We can also see the docking port. I can see the cross lines very well. Copy all. That's great news. The crosshairs are aligned.
Very good view of the Poisk module docking port with the diamond-shaped docking target just underneath the crosshairs.
Oxygen supply is
Everything is in great shape, some 20 meters away, separating Soyuz from the International Space Station.
the range is less than 60 meters. Yes.
Да, есть база.
Because their air is confirmed.
Есть причал. Нет, сейчас причал, да. Причал есть, кажется.
Rendezvous is confirmed.
Одна клетка помещения, расстояние примерно 18 метров, по угловым размерам совпадает.
Approximately 18 meters, and it is 1 square in size. Everything matches the course data. The predictions are being updated.
Наплыв хороший, кресты собраны.
The crosshairs are aligned.
Принимаем вас хорошо.
We can see it very clearly. The image is very clear.
Just 12 meters away, Soyuz closing at its expected rate of 1/10 of a meter per second as we stand by for contact and capture.
Range is around 10 meters.
Принято.
Copy.
Пропало у нас изображение.
We don't see the image anymore. Oh, it's back.
Кресты собраны, с допуском необходимо.
The crosshairs are aligned.
Понял вас.
Хороший.
Everything is nominal.
2,5 клетки подстыковочной мишени. Отлично.
The target is at the center of the cross lines.
Хорошо.
That's great.
Небольшой крен есть,
You
допустим.
can see some raw value here, but it's allowed.
Отлично. Подстыковочная мишень по контролю стыковка отлично.
The target is clearly visible.
Подтверждаю.
Yes, to confirm the same. So we're standing by for the contact. Yes. So are we?
Есть касание.
Contact is confirmed.
Есть цепка.
We have docking, contact confirmed, and capture confirmed at 2:40 p.m. Central Time, 10:40 p.m. Moscow time, as the Soyuz and the International Space Station flew 254 miles over Serbia. The International Space Station now in free drift, all thrusters disabled to allow relative motion between the two vehicles to dampen out prior to the retraction of the forward docking probe on the Soyuz. A textbook rendezvous, a perfect docking. Oleg Artemyev, Drew Feustel, and Ricky Arnold have arrived at the International Space Station to double its population. Again, docking confirmed at 2:40 p.m. Central Time, 3:40 p.m. Eastern Time.
Принято.
Copy all.
Олег, переходи на СФП.
Oleg,
Дрю пусть работает.
please switch to the docking internal transfer system,
В начале.
and you can go to page 81, and after that you can proceed with leak checks. Copy.
Так, отключай фару, да?
Okay, I'm switching off
Закрываем
floodlights.
Рики,
We are closing RPV,
манометр из футляра.
and please remove the manometer from the case
Не мешаю.
in work.
Работаю по ССВП.
And I start working with SSVP, docking internal transfer system.
Цепка. 8:04.
The docking probe nestled in the docking port of the Poisk module. Again, standing by for the dampening out and the stabilization of the relative motion between the two vehicles before that docking probe begins to retract and the initiation of the closing of the hooks on both sides of the docking interface to form a hard mate between Soyuz and the International Space Station.
22:40.
So you started it at 22:42?
Yeah,
pretty much.
A journey that began with the launch of the Soyuz spacecraft from the Baikonur Cosmodrome in Kazakhstan just before midnight Baikonur time on Wednesday culminates with a textbook rendezvous and a smooth docking of the vehicle to the Poisk module of the International Space Station just a few minutes ago at 2:40 p.m. Central Time, 3:40 p.m. Eastern Time, as Soyuz and the International Space Station flew 254 miles over Serbia.
Come again? On page 81, you need to send R7 and S18 command, correct?
Очень плохо тебя слышу.
I can hardly hear you. Can you please repeat what you just said?
Москва, Гавайи.
Moscow, Hawaii. Oleg, how copy?
111.
Can you please repeat what you just said?
111, да, вот сейчас.
111. Yeah, I can hear you.
Я жду подтверждения от вас
I need
выдачи R7 и
a confirmation that R7 and S18 commands have been sent. S18.
We now have confirmation that the hooks are driving. We'll be standing by for the confirmation of the hooks closing on both sides of the docking interface to form a hard mate between Soyuz and the International Space Station, after which the crews on both sides of the Soyuz and the station vehicles will begin a period of about 90 minutes or so of leak checks to make sure that we have an airtight seal prior to the depressurization of the small vestibule or passageway between Soyuz and the Poisk module that will be the precursor to the opening of the hatches and the greeting of the two crews a bit later.
СА 797, давление БО 787.
At 22:41:56.
838.
797, BO 787, and
Все хорошо.
SA 794. Copy all. Thank you. How copy? All right, so please keep monitoring SSVP operation. All right, all the LEDs are lit. The hooks are closed and respective LEDs illuminate.
We now have confirmation that the hooks are closed on both sides of the docking interface, so we now have a hard mate between the Soyuz MS-08 and the International Space Station that will initiate the ability of the Soyuz crew to conduct a leak check at the docking interface and to get out of their Sokol launch and entry suits and put on more comfortable flight clothing as they prepare for the opening of the hatches between the two vehicles that will occur about 2 hours from now. On January 5th, America lost a human spaceflight icon with the passing of astronaut John Young at the age of 87. Young enjoyed the longest career of any NASA astronaut in history, was the first human to fly in space 6 times, the 9th human to walk on the moon, and the first commander of a space shuttle mission. It all started for John Young 53 years ago today. Boarded the Gemini 3 spacecraft at Launch Complex 19 at Cape Kennedy, Florida. And at 10:24 a.m. Eastern Time, their Titan II launch vehicle lifted off for the start of a 5-hour shakedown mission of the new Gemini capsule. As they soared skyward, 90 minutes after launch, Grissom and Young conducted the first orbital maneuver by a crewed spacecraft, a 1-minute, 14-second firing of orbital attitude engines to slightly change Gemini's orbit, all the while flight controllers tracking the crew and the spacecraft from the Cape Kennedy Air Force Station. Finally, after 3 orbits, Gemini 3 headed home for a mid-afternoon splashdown in the Atlantic, where the USS Intrepid stood at the ready to recover the crew. Soon after splashdown, Grissom and Young were extracted from Gemini 3 in excellent shape and brought on board the Intrepid for post-flight medical exams. It was a successful end to the maiden flight in the Gemini program that would pave the way for Apollo and for Young future missions on the space shuttle. It is a fitting tribute that today, for John Young, 53 years after Gemini 3, 3 new residents have arrived at the International Space Station to maintain a permanent human occupancy that is approaching 2 decades in length. Now back looking at a view from a balcony camera here in the Russian Mission Control Center in Korolyov outside of Moscow, as the relative motion between the 2 vehicles dampened out, permitting hooks to be closed on both sides of the docking interface. So a flawless docking executed automatically for the crew on board the Soyuz, Oleg Artemyev, Drew Feustel, and Ricky Arnold, who will soon get out of their Sokol launch and entry suits, deactivate their camcorders, and begin preparations for the opening of the hatches and a greeting by the residents of the station who have been on board since December, Expedition 55 Commander Anton Shkaplerov, NASA astronaut Scott Tingle, and Norishige Kanai of the Japan Aerospace Exploration Agency. With the flawless docking having been completed, we'll point you to our next NASA television broadcast that will be coming up at 4 p.m. Central Time, 5 p.m. Eastern Time, our hatch opening coverage on NASA television for a hatch opening scheduled at 4:45 p.m. Central Time, 5:45 p.m. Eastern Time. Until then, we'll be back shortly with all of the hatch opening coverage. Thanks for joining us. The Soyuz MS-08 successfully arriving at the International Space Station. This is Mission Control Korolyov.